I live in an apartment. I can't have surround sound. It's annoying. It would absolutely disturb my neighbors. These walls are paper thin. My neighbor's probably listening to this review right now, critiquing it.
Heard of Colonel Walter E. Kurtz? Your mission is to terminate the Colonel's command.
Terminate. Terminate with extreme prejudice.
Hey guys, welcome to Keeping It Real. I'm Ryan, and today we're going to be talking about another one of my favorite movies, Apocalypse Now.
Someday this war's going to end.
Apocalypse Now is set at the height of the Vietnam War, right around 1969-1970, although I don't believe that it's actually specified in any version of this film. That being said, right at the height of the Vietnam War, a Captain Willard, who's played by Martin Sheen in this film, is given a very specific mission. His mission is to go upriver to assassinate a colonel who has gone rogue and has taken on a demigod-like status with the locals in the area that he is now occupying. This colonel has been acting on his own accord, making his own decisions with no sanctions from the United States government, and he also has kind of gone a little bit crazy.
November. Kurtz orders assassination of 3 Vietnamese men and 1 woman. 2 of the men were colonels in the South Vietnamese army. Guess he must have hit the right 4 people.
He claims that he did a lot of research, found out that these people were spies, and therefore he executed them. However, this was an unsanctioned move, and therefore the United States government was trying to charge him with murder.
But he kept going.
Now he's crossed into Cambodia.
And he kept winning it his way.
Montagnard army of his.
And they called me in.
The man like a god.
Colonel Kurtz, he basically said, no, that's not going to happen, that's insane, that's crazy, which he kind of has a point given everything that was going on in the Vietnam War. At one point, Martin Sheen, for instance, says,
Charging a man with murder in this place was like handing out speeding tickets at the Indy 500.
It's a dark depiction of what it was like over there, but nonetheless, he says, no, I'm not going to participate in that, and he dips out and goes rogue.
They lost him. He was gone. Nothing but rumors and random intelligence, mostly from captured VC. The VC knew his name by now, and they were scared of him. He and his men were playing hit and run all the way into Cambodia.
So first I'm going to talk about how there are 3 different movies, there's 4 different versions of this movie that you can technically watch. One of them is a 5-hour-long work print. The work print is not exactly what I would call a watchable movie. It contains a lot of alternate takes to things, but they play out back to back, so often you see the same thing happen over and over. It fills in a couple of gaps, but it's not really the version that I would recommend that anybody watch per se. That being said, there is the 1979 theatrical version of this movie.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
It's not the version that I necessarily recommend. Why? Well, because there are 2 more versions of this movie that are 100% watchable and purchasable, for instance. That is Apocalypse Now Redux, which is the most extended version of this movie that was completed. It adds about an hour's worth of footage onto the original theatrical cut. And these were scenes that were cut for various reasons. Francis Coppola at one point said that, there were scenes that were maybe too distracting or that they were too weird. And so a lot of these scenes were cut, or he just felt as though there were scenes that just didn't move the plot forward. In particular, there's a French plantation scene, and quite frankly, he's right. It's an interesting scene, but it doesn't move the plot forward. So things like that were added back into the film. In that sense, it's great. It's got a lot of added stuff in there, and if you like this movie, it's got the most apocalypse now. That being said, again, this is not the version that I necessarily recommend. Why? Because the final cut is the version that I recommend that you watch. The final cut of this movie is also director Francis Ford Coppola's favorite version of the film, and this is why we get a nice 4K restoration from the original film cells with this particular version of the movie. The final cut of Apocalypse Now is in between the theatrical and Redux in terms of the amount of footage that is added back in. And so it's shorter than Redux, but longer than the theatrical. And I think that this is the best version of the movie to watch, personally. I think it looks beautiful, especially if you have the opportunity to watch it with the 4K restoration. It doesn't look like the movie was shot yesterday, but it certainly doesn't look 40 plus years old. 41 years old. It certainly doesn't look that old. It looks like maybe 20 years old. It just has the right amount of scenes. There's one scene from Redux that I wish was in the final cut, and that is there's a scene of Marlon Brando reading Time magazine.
The war on the horizon. The American people may find it hard to believe that the U.S. is winning the war in Vietnam. May bring the enemy to the point where he could simply be unable to continue fighting. Is this familiar?
It doesn't add anything to the plot. It's just an interesting scene, and it's Marlon Brando, and it's just cool to watch. It also, for this 4K restoration, Francis Coppola as well as the sound team worked with a company called Meyer Sound. They use these very specific tones and things that make you feel before you hear or see. You can feel the helicopters coming below the trees, and they're about to rise above the trees, and we're about to see them. They're silhouetted on the horizon, and you can actually feel this before you see it and hear it. You just kind of get this rumbling sensation here, but not here. It's a really cool sensory trick if you have a good sound system, because it really adds something. It makes it feel like you're there. This technique has been used for a long time. They use it in horror movies and things like that to build tension, because it's, again, not something you can hear, it's something you can feel. And so, like, when the music drops, for instance, and you know that their character's about to turn the corner and something scary is going to happen, it's actually not silence. There's Meyer sound going on. There are these tones going on that you can't necessarily hear, but you can feel, and it's one of the reasons why it builds tension, especially when you see this in a movie theater. As I already told you, Captain Willard is assigned with going upriver to terminate the command of this Colonel Kurtz, played by Marlon Brando.
At first, I thought they handed me the wrong dossier. I couldn't believe they wanted this man dead. Third generation West Point, top of his class, Korea, airborne, about 1,000 decorations, etc., etc.
Captain Willard, Martin Sheen's character, for the first 2 acts of this movie, it is him and his journey with his boat crew going upriver in search of Marlon Brando's character.
Very obviously, he has gone insane.
This is the end.